the end of the year. And then, as you guys all know, your grants end at the end of February. So we'll be, the February 28th is when everything is done. And then the closeout process begins right after that.
All right.
So are there any questions on any of that, Dee?
Somebody has a question about budgets. So where did it go? Is there an allowable variance for the budget categories, 5 to 10%, i.e. if work experience expenditures goes a couple hundred over budgeted amount, and how is that handled in GRS reporting?
There is a 10% variance on all line items with the exception of admin. So as long as you're not going over that 10% variance, you should be able to put those in. And you should be able to, they'll be accepted in the GRS system. Now, if you're over the 10%, the GRS will just basically say that you can't accept that you're over the variance. And if for some reason you do need, and I'm not complaining, if you're spending all of your training and your paid work experience dollars, that's awesome. So if you need to modify your budgets, we still have time to do that, and we can move money into those line items, and that's great. And that's the other thing too, is that the big thing is we want to see the expenditures and paid work experience and training.
All right, and Larry's asking, are we to cancel December scheduled orientation since no new referrals can be accepted? And the answer to that is no, because as long as you have programs that are available to people being rescheduled, they can still attend those orientations. And these may be customers that never got engaged in the first place. So my suggestion to you, Larry, especially since you have to drive to get to your orientations, I would suggest that you keep track of the pending appointments area, just so that you know if anybody's scheduled or not. But leave the appointments.
Correct. Do that, because you want to leave the appointments as long as your program's accessible and within a time frame. And keep in mind that if you have new customers scheduled in December and even January, it's possible you still serve those customers. It's just that there's going to be no more new appointments made for new customers at the end of November. But obviously, if you've got appointments with customers, you're still getting them in. You're still doing your part of the work.
And the other thing that you need to think about too is, and I think it was Eric that mentioned it, work experience counts as, if they finish the work experience, it counts as a completed training. So if you don't have a program available, but could do some work experience for a customer and some of the career readiness stuff, that could still get you some assessments, enrollments, and completed trainings. So consider that, and we might just have everybody add a work experience program as an option, if that's something that you can do. Samantha asked, no new referrals effective 11/30 of 18. So DHS stopped checking on the new referrals as of November 30th. And now we've got another question. How are SNAP ineligible customers treated in the benchmarks? I have 4 EPIC participants for whom we were providing training just go ineligible that I had to exit. Are they accounted for in our outcomes? If they completed training, or if you have paid for training, they can complete the training. They still count as a completion as long as the steps are appropriately marked. If the training was not paid for, they have to come out and you would lose that completion for the training, but you would still have the enrollment and the assessment. When it comes to getting them a job, that's going to be a little bit tougher because it would have had to have been done prior to them being treated ineligible. Nothing can go past 228 except for us cleaning up paperwork. Yes. Eric is asking, so make sure I-STEPs show completed training. Yes, if they completed training and it's been paid for, yes. The only time, and back to Kelsey's question about paid work experience, the only time that anything can go beyond, and it's not really going beyond in Epic, it's only going beyond for the customer, is if you co-enroll them to WIOA, if there's money available in your area. Then they get marked as completed, enrolled in additional training. And we'll go over some of this completion stuff in January in the dashboard, and on our visits, so that we make sure that you're getting all these customers working properly. Still, yes, you can still pay for items up to $228. We got another question that scrolled down on me. Let me get the top part of it. Employment outcomes, all four are still enrolled in other programs, but just no longer Epic. So if they achieve employment outcomes, I could change their, Tammy, that's a call for you. Can he change their outcome to employed if they get a job?
Are they still eligible for SNAP benefits?
No.
Okay.
Eric is saying that they're enrolled in other programs, but just no longer eligible for Epic.
For Epic. Okay, gotcha. Let me confer with DHS. I mean, ultimately, what the evaluation team is going to be looking at is the permanent placement, and they're going to be looking at their IDES wage records. Let me get back with you on that one. I'll make a note on that because they don't have employment at this time, and they're in another training program to complete their training. That's my understanding of this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. 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 Eric, send me a note on that, and I'll follow back up with you how that we could potentially, if we can, count that. My concern is if they're not currently eligible for Epic, and it didn't happen during that time period, we may not be able to. But send me an email on that.
As I've been out visiting people, I have found that they had gained employment, but then the employment wasn't entered prior to DHS marking them as ineligible. So if you know that your customer was working somewhere and their start date was prior to DHS marking them as ineligible, and that could be one of the reasons why they're getting marked as ineligible, then you can still enter that employment and change that completion reason. But if it's after they were marked as ineligible, that's what Tammy has to check on. All right, so then
correct, and that's the other thing in the data cleanup is just make sure you're documenting all employment too and verifying it. You need to upload documentation of employment with that also.
Yeah, we need employment verification, either 3085 or pay stubs or a employment verification form from your agency. The 3085 is the DHS form. Kelsey's asking, so all WIOA customers are completed additional training? No, not necessarily. They could be completed hired. It's only if they're moving forward into WIOA because their training is going to go beyond the 2/28/19 date. So that's when you would mark them as completed, moving on to higher education. And then are they reimbursed as an employed or as something else? They're not reimbursed as employed. Tammy will have to talk to you about that one. So Tammy?
There is, you guys, if you're using that benchmark report at the bottom, there is some bonus points for being referred to training program or staying in a training program, and it's weighted the same way as employed. So if they're moving on to higher training and not employed after Epic is over, you still get that same amount that you would get as employed. But we do have some, like I said, kind of bonuses if you give them credentials, if you had credentials that they earned within their career pathway, and if they were placed in employment within a career pathway. And then right below that, it says if they're going into continuing education, and that's counted.
All right. What about customers that are becoming employed but still in training? Now that's a call up, that's up to you. If they're going to get employed and they're going to get their retention before the end of February 28, but it's not in their training industry, you'll still get the employment and the retention, but the goal is to get them trained with a credential and employed in the training industry. So we have to try to get that done. And I understand that some people need to work while they are going to class. The one piece that you have to also understand, part-time doesn't count anyway. So that it has to be the 30 plus hours a week for them to count as employed and retained. So did that answer you guys' question? And if you're on a mic and you want to ask it because I didn't understand it properly, then you can do that too. Okay. Meaning when they complete their program, a company is, yeah. I understand that, Samantha, but the challenge is they have to be completed. They have to get their hire date in before 2/28 for it to count as an employee. And even if they just work one day, so if they start working on 2/27 and you get them entered into the system, they count as employed for you, but they obviously won't count as retained.
And with retention, we can go out to the closeout period of the 45 days out. So, but remember, that's going to require some effort on you guys to document that. So, and your grant ends in February of 2018. So retention, we can go through the closeout period. You just have to be willing to put that information in the system so it can be counted.
So what Tammy just said is, we'll probably be working on the grant until April 15th. And you can still enter data, but you can't do any more work or pay for anything else. So that retention date could be as late as April 15th. Is that correct, Tammy?
Yeah, probably a little bit before that because the documentation, all the closeout requirements are due within 45 days. So we can go out to close to the closeout period to count retention.
All right. Okay, so now let me get to numbers. We've got a lot of 2151As past due, and that kind of shocked me a little bit because Eric, I'm going to tell you 1/10/2019. Because today is the 5th, so I know we had a weekend for the 1st and the 2nd. So some of you guys need to really look at these numbers. I'm not sure that all of these are correct because Albany Park, I don't think you have 44 active customers. So Samantha, if you're in there and you and Joe take a look at that and you notice that some of those people aren't active anymore, please send me an email so that I can check to see why that number is so high. But then some of the other agencies don't have anybody or else they're already done. So I don't quite know what's going on right now with those numbers. Application not started. We've had an issue with people early into the process of the new cohort referrals. We weren't getting people to complete their application before they did anything else. So in that situation, some of these numbers where it says application not started, those are customers who are not ever going to come back to you. And what we're going to do is as long as they have a not eligible, one of the red reasons on their progress page, If they have one of the red reasons, we're going to automatically move them to that row if they don't have their application completed. So I'm going to work with our programmers on getting that done. So hopefully probably by the 15th, I'll be able to have some of those numbers cleaned up. 2151 past due, some of those numbers, as well as some of those enrollment required, probably have to do with the people that have the application not started. So if any of those people in those 3 columns, the application not started, the 2151 past due, and the enrollment required, are active customers that you're working with, get their application done, get a 2151 uploaded, and get them enrolled, and then I'll have real numbers in there. And if you're having problems getting them into their application, we did have an issue that OEI experienced today, that the customer's Epic was not available in their login screen or in their My Documents screen. My dashboard screen. So we need to know these things too, so that we can get those sorts of things fixed for you. Make sure that your CBO contacts are currently up to date. We want to make sure, as Tammy said earlier, that we have TABE scores under the assessments, other assessments section. And during the data review visits, we're going to be looking to make sure that everything is appropriately marked and uploaded, and that credentials are credentials, not certificates of completion. So it's okay if you upload the certificates of completion. I'm not going to make you take them out, but I do want you to make sure that your credentials are consistently named, that they are a portable, stackable credential. And those of you that offer NIMS or OSHA or CNA, you know that those are those kind of portable, stackable credentials. Who's the issuing agency? And like I said, the certificates of completion don't really count as a credential. Okay, Samantha, you're going to email me. If you did not already check in with your agency, please do that, because that's how I'm tracking who's attending. As you can see here, I got Tri-County Urban League and Homework Hangout already. I don't have anything else. Tammy, do you?
I don't have anything else at this time. Just like I said before, just make sure you guys are finishing strong and getting the customers in place. And, you know, like I said, because we're going to be evaluated on this, and hopefully, you know, we've got some good stuff that's coming out of that, and it'll change some of the directions of the way that Snap ENC is going to be operated in the future. So just finish strong and make sure your data is really, really clean.
All right. I get to see National Able and Central State SEER next week. And the following week, I get to see Catholic Charities, JARC, and Safe Haven. So we'll talk to you guys in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk again on our webinar on the 19th, and we will have that one, because then we wouldn't have another one until after the first of the year. All right, and as always, if you have any questions, you can email me, and we will get you squared away. So have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll have closeout information probably on one of the January webinars.
Thanks, everybody, for all your work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.